When you think of haters in fiction, what comes to your mind would probably be someone like Reverse Flash, Dio, Frieza, or even Toby Rama. But there is someone that committed such diabolical acts of terror to the point it's just completely insane. And that person is no one other than Goblin Slayer. So before we get into this, if you've seen Goblin Slayer, then you know these goblins ain't no reincarnated as a slime goblin. These are some freaky ass goblins, come back from the island type goblins. You get it. To start everything off, this innocent girl decides one day, I'm gonna become an adventurer, and that's what she does. So she signs up with the guild, and right as she finishes, this dude approaches her and invites her to his party. And she wondered what they would be doing, and his response is, Goblin slaying. Little does she know this will be the biggest mistake in her life. So the guildmaster tries to warn them about the danger, but bro thinks he's the main protagonist. Little does he know, he's gonna get proven wrong real quick. So they find the entrance to the goblin cave, and they walk inside, and girl is terrified for good reason. So these two got separated from the others, and they got ran up on by a pack of stinky, dirty goblins. So girl started fighting the goblins, and she was doing good for like a whole 7 seconds until they dropped her to the ground, took her staff, and broke it. So she starts kicking the goblins off while girl over here is swinging for her life. So then she ends up getting stabbed, and bro finally comes back. He puts that sword to good use and slices this goblin in two. He tries to hold off the goblins, but he got stabbed in the leg. Shit was not looking good. So a goblin runs up behind him. He does an overhead swing, but his sword hits the roof. Dear God, bro knew he was cooked. He getting straight murdered, and her healing magic is not working. And this chick right here tells her to run. She engages the goblin, and she was low-key putting them paws on them. Until she got grabbed by this Rick Ross looking ass goblin. He slams her into a wall, throws her to the ground, and she was cooked. And bro, these goblins committed the worst acts known to man. Till this day, I would never look at goblins the same. So she runs for her life trying to escape, then falls to the ground and gets shot by an arrow. Jesus, please help them. She tries to protect her, but then gets kicked to the side, and these two freaky goblins started ripping her clothes off. And girl done peed herself, and they were out here laughing. But then, in the distance, he came.
3, 5, 4, 5. Do I smell some bum-ass goblins acting dumb? Get that weak ass shit out of here. I'm gonna teach y'all the true meaning of fear. I think there's something on the wall. Oh shit, it was you.
And I know y'all felt that aura when he approached. So he burns this goblin's face and says, that's one. And this goblin tried to run away, but she stops him, and he throws his sword at his head. Oh, that's two. So she asks, who are you? And that's when he said, I'm Goblin Slayer. So girl on the ground is barely alive. She asks Goblin Slayer to kill her, and that's what he does. So these two team up to take out the rest of the goblins. And bro goes on a rampage.
3 goblins down. 4 goblins down. Here comes Rick Ross. Blast that nigga with holy light. 5 goblins down. 6, 7 goblins down. 8, 9, 10 goblins down. Oh, and for good measure, stay your ass down. Well. What do we have here? Hey kids, what's my name?
Goblin Slayer.
You're goddamn right.
And bro walks out of there saying,
And that's 14.
So now a day later, Anna comes to Goblin Slayer and asks, what quest is he gonna take? And this says Goblin Slaying. Like, who could have guessed? So I think it's time to discuss why Goblin Slayer hates goblins so much, and it all started off when he was just a child. One night, his village was being raided by goblins, and they massacred everyone in that village, and they burnt it down. Now see this girl right here? She was like the closest to Goblin Slayer, and her parents were killed in that massacre. Now Goblin Slayer, he had an older sister before, and what happened to her is downright devious. And what those goblins, yes, multiple goblins did to her was a word that starts with an R and ends in a you-know-what. And after she suffered, they then murdered her. And oh, it gets worse. Goblin Slayer as a kid had to witness all of that happening to his village and his sister. I mean, his hatred for goblins is understood, right? It's justified. No objections, right? We all agreed he's in the right? Yeah, of course we do. Goblin Slayer holds so much hate for these goblins to the point I think it's frying his brain. This is deadass how he interacts with the guild lady.
Good morning, Goblin Slayer. We have quite the collection of quests.
Where are the goblin killing quest?
Well, we don't have any more. Wait just a second!
So you do have goblins.
Well, I have a one goblin quest, but it's not that much of a big deal.
I'll take it. It must always be goblins.
Another thing, the way Goblin Slayer kills these goblins is honestly scary. Setting fire to a goblin fortress and sealing them inside using Anna's magic. Killed and used goblin guts to hide his scent. I know that boy's thing. Oh, hell no! And executing goblins in their sleep. Also, look at his party. We all know Goblin Slayer hates goblins, but that hate is contagious. Also, in one episode, there was a guy singing about him.
The Goblin Slayer swung his blade, fierce wretchedness he now would purify. Goblin corpses he cut through as the heads flew high. Oh, courageous warrior, with a sword that's tempered in perfect silver, never will the blade betray its purpose or its way.
For our last act, I think it's time to discuss the Goblin Raid. So here's what's going on. Goblin Slayer discovered stinky goblin tracks outside of his property. Like, look at this. It's gotta be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 40 goblin footprints. Dear Lord, it's about to be a massacre. Goblin Slayer then went to go warn his childhood friend about the upcoming raid. And look at her face. She knows shit is about to go down. So now Goblin Slayer goes to the guild to request aid from all of the other adventurers. Also, this guy Goblin Slayer is relatively known as a weirdo around the guild. Oh, but isn't Goblin Slayer still hunting goblins? Gonna say something?
I've come to make a request.
Think it's about goblins?
I still owe him $5.
Have y'all ever seen his face? Now that you say it.
A shit ton of cave dwelling, fortress stealing, mass breeding, woman assaulting, shit breath, bald head, pot belly, green skin, long nose, yellow-eyed goblins.
Well, damn.
And get this, there's over 100 of those monsters. And they're being led by a goblin lord.
That's more than 20. My mom's turning 100.
So after all that yap, everyone in the guild decided to help Goblin Slayer destroy those goblins. Moving on, the war between the guild and the goblins. And look at this. We have this gorgeous warrior of a woman bringing death to these goblins. Bro in blue armor is absolutely fucking up these niggas. And Lizard Man is bringing shame to these monkeys. I mean goblins. So now it's time for the main event. Goblin Lord versus Goblin Slayer. So the Lord is running away because his plan failed, but then he was stopped by the Goblin Slayer. So now the fade begins. First hit goes to Goblin Slayer with a jab to the head. Goblin Lord then returns with a right swing, sending his ass flying. Then Goblin Lord gets another hit on Goblin Slayer. Wrap it up, bro. You're washed. Then he starts slamming his nasty foot on his head. But when hope seemed lost, Goblin Slayer activated his cameo fighter. And Anna came and started squeezing this dude. So Goblin Slayer then got back up and jabbed his sword in his neck, giving him a slow death while saying racial slurs. And with that, the victory goes to Goblin Slayer. But I ain't gonna lie, this idiot was getting cooked. If Anna wasn't there, this nigga would have been dead.